What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. I'm joined by the host of the Pennsylvania Woodsman Podcast, Sportsman's Empire brother, Mitch Shirk. Mitch, welcome back to the show, dude.
It's good to be back. Thank you for having me. How you been?
Oh, man, I appreciate you having me on. It's like we went so long without doing and talking, and next thing you know, we're back-to-back weeks of getting a chance to record. So it's always good to catch up, man, and just talk because you know, you put out some really good stuff, and it's hearing Dan say how you're one of the smartest individuals that he's had the chance to be around and talk to, and that's high praise, and I agree with him. So it's like, hey, let's do it again, Mitch. So it's nice having you now on this opposite end for this week's episode. So
it's high praise. I just still think he must hang around stupid people.
I like it, dude. I know it's because man, he talks to so many people a day. Like I don't know how he could keep people straight. It's unbelievable what the emperor does for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man. No, man, I had a fun conversation. I hope you got some good feedback from our episode, and hopefully it went pretty well for you.
Absolutely. I think the thing that is kind of interesting is you and I are similar in where we're at in life. And so relating to that and just trying to make it relatable. And I think there's so much content out there about, big macho man deer hunter. And don't get me wrong. I mean, who doesn't want to be big macho man hunter? But at the same time, there's a lot more priorities in life than that. So trying to showcase what we do and be realistic. I mean, that's relatable, I guess.
Yeah. Yep, no doubt about it, dude. And that's the thing. You be yourself, and we're in a weird position where we've been doing this for a couple years, and it's a position where we pull that curtain back and people get a chance to see us a little bit of who we are, what we do, what makes us tick a little bit. So it's weird. You know what I mean? Like in that sort of thing. But when you have those chances of, say you walk around the PA outdoor show or something like that, and you meet somebody and, hey man, I listen to your podcast and really appreciate all the information or the guests, and really like what you're up to, and I'm following along and rooting for you or whatever it be. Like, that's really awesome. You know what I mean? And it's what makes you kind of continue to get better and as doing the things we do. But like you said, we have other priorities, no doubt about it. Like I was just explaining to you what today was for me. It was a busy day, and things had to get done, and other main priorities of what brings home the bacon for me, basically. So it is what it is, man. And I'm happy that to wrap up the day, I get a chance to talk whitetail hunting with you, man. So I'm pumped.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
So here's what I want to talk to you about, Mitch, because I had in my phone notes from a while ago of some topics that, like, I write people down, like names down of who I'm hoping that I could potentially line up and have a conversation with. And I had you on there from like the summer, and I wanted to have and I think it makes sense now because we are here in the thick of things as far as the hunting season is upon us. Basically, early season states are already rolling and kicking off. Pennsylvania is right around the corner for us, and actually when this one finally airs, it will be. So I want to talk to you, Mitch, about really mastering, or not, I don't want to say mastering, but like having a go at smaller chunks of land and really honing in on your do's, your don'ts, and how you kind of draw success out of that. Just because we talked a little bit about it from our podcast like 2 years ago, I guess you would even say, but like how you take that of, say, hunting your own piece, but then also making a bigger chunk of public smaller. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's where I want to really get into that. So, man, like you were just saying before, though, so before you could maybe elaborate on that within this question. You were just saying this year's a little unique hunting year for you, and we talked briefly about it on when I came on your show. But I guess for our listeners and just to maybe harp on it a little bit more, what is so different, or maybe going to be a new challenge for you for this year?
Yeah. So what's the main thing that's different is the properties I'm hunting are a little bit different, but mostly it's my time. I mean, going into many of the seasons that I've gone up and throughout my life, I've done most of the preparation you can imagine from, and we're talking private land, right? So, talking cutting trails, shooting lanes, setting stands, planting food plots, doing a lot of that stuff you hear about for preseason work. And then when it gets to that, I try to shoot for 30 days prior to the opener and stay the heck out of it and let things kind of cool down and then get into those properties. And what's different this year is it's not that it's different this year compared to last year. It's just it continues to get more pronounced. Like the kid life, my wife's life, and everything else. Like I did next to no preparation this year, and that's the honest to God truth. I planted a couple food plots. I hung a couple stands. I can't say I didn't do anything, but relative to what I'm used to doing, it's so different. And with that, I kind of have to curb my expectations of what I'm going to do as far as deer, like where I'm going to hunt, when I'm going to hunt, what kind of deer I think I'm going to try to shoot, that sort of thing. And I'm kind of coming to the point where I'm really just going to throw a lot of the stuff that I've done in the past out the window and just kind of roll with what I'm seeing at that time and then hunting it. I'm going to try to hunt smart, but I mean, a lot of that preparation and cameras and intel, like some of that's going to be a little bit out the window, I guess, in my mind. Yeah, it's I don't know if that makes sense or not. It's just kind of very from the hip.
Yeah. So like with that, what's your plan? I mean, obviously like reading that sign and what it's throwing at you at that point in time, but you want to maximize those opportunities because you're limited on time and heck, man, like you're even limited on space, like you said, of the things that you've done up until this point. So, it kind of makes it fun in a way, just because it's a different approach than what you're used to kind of doing. So, how do you look at like maximizing those opportunities in a sense?
So if I take public out of the equation right now, I have 1, 2, 3 pieces of private land that I've hunted in the past and I will hunt this year, and I can come up with a little bit of a game plan in my mind, right? And there's a couple other properties that are new to me that I can hunt. I know diddly squat about them, and then there's always going to camp, and I know places there, but I don't have a lot of big MRI on those big mountain deer. Right. So it's kind of, I'm just going to, when I go to there, it's going to be a trip that I'm going to hopefully have some camaraderie with people and unwind and just go in the mountains. Right. But so, to answer your question about how am I going to try to maximize what I have, the 3 properties that I'm talking about, I'm trying to base them off of what I know they do in the past. Right. So give you a good example. There's a property in western Pennsylvania I've yet to kill a deer on, but I've had some really cool hunts on, saw a lot of deer, passed a lot of deer. I know looking at this property and the way this property gets used outside of hunting, there is one sliver of this 20-some acre property that is the lowest pressure, and therefore it's the best bedding. Okay. So with that in mind, I set a stand for this property where I can walk straight up a steep hill and have the topography kind of cover me, and I can slip into a stand right at the edge of that bedding on a point. And what I've decided I'm going to do is I know a couple time frames when I've seen it get active there, but really what it comes down to, again, going back to when I have time to hunt, if the wind is right and I can hunt it, I'm going to, because I feel the way I set that stand up and the way I have that access, I feel I can get in and out and I'm going to have a minimal impact. So, I'd love to say, I'm going to be waiting for a specific deer to come through at this specific time like he did the past few years. I have had that. I don't have any targets there per se, but I do know that if I get a cold front in October and I'm able to make the trip out there, I'm going to say that's probably a sit worth having because it's in the best place in that property, in my opinion. Right. So, the way I'm viewing that property is let's take what I believe to be the best section. And if I'm going to make a trip out there, let's make the most of it in that very best stand. I feel like I've kind of narrowed it down to what's A, the best spot for the deer, and B, the best spot for Mitchell to be in a tree.
That's really good, because there's times where people could really chase their tail when it comes to like that situation where we are driving X amount of hours to a different state or to our camp or somewhere along those lines, where you are trying to maximize that. And that's honestly, Mitch, like I just was talking to Kurt DeLautry about that the other night when I go home, and he brought it up too. Like, and that's where, when we talked on your podcast, like talking about that data, you know what I mean? In the past history, whether it be time on stand or collecting that intel with camera. And man, I know what, if it's, even though it might be October 7th, right? I mean, our opening day for statewide's the 5th, right? Yep. It just seems so late. When you say the 5th, it's like, oh my gosh, that's usually the 3rd or 4th day of the season already for statewide. But if it's October 11th, let's just say, and that first cold front comes in and it looks really good, years past, I for sure would have been like, I'm maximizing this opportunity. I'm driving home. I might take a sick day, and I don't see anything. Or if I do, I'm seeing a spiker. I'm seeing a forky or doe, just young deer. And it finally was like, okay, what if I wait until whatever, the later in the month when things seem to be a little bit better? And it's like, oh, like the light bulb goes off. So like now I'll use that time to hunt other areas, maybe public land closer to home where I could be more available for the family. And then once it gets later, that's when I'm going to maximize those opportunities. So I like that how you have, where you want to, where you feel like you could get in there and do damage with that. And do you take that same approach too? Like as far as like hunting the public land side of things, like how many, just because I remember from that previous conversation, which was 2 years ago, and you could even correct me if I'm wrong, Mitch. I remember you saying like there's certain spots where you're like, I don't care if I blow it up. That's what it's there for, because I have, the private piece. How has anything evolved for you on the public pieces near you at all, or anything like that?
Not really. I've done some public hunting since we've talked, but I'll be frank, I shot a lot of buck on private, and I haven't. It's a bittersweet thing to shoot your buck and be done, because you're done hunting in a sense. I mean, I'm hunting, but I'm not hunting the same. And I keep saying there's a couple like bucket list things I want to do. I want to shoot a buck that was worth mounting and putting on my wall at my camp with a bow. And I want to shoot one, a good buck with a flintlock. There's all these things that revolve me to just like sacrifice what I know and get outside my comfort zone. And I'm in a position this year where I could do that. And I'm also in a position where I could go out to that property in Western Pennsylvania and I might shoot the biggest buck of my life and I'll be done early. So, it's you can't have your cake and eat it too. But the one thing I wanted to say, going back to that conversation when I said about that tree stand. So I had to learn this the hard way. So I was spoiled growing up. I hunted a property with like-minded individuals that was all for deer. Everything that was done with this property was for deer hunting, pressure, stands, yada, yada. Now I'm hunting some properties that I have permission and I can do what I want hunting wise, but it's a whole nother animal dealing with the landowners or the other activities that go on that property. And, the thing I used to always do is I still believe to this day, I'm a fan of mobile hunting. I'm a fan of saddles. I'm a fan of the movable tree stands and portable stuff. But I still say, if you know a property and you set things up appropriately, you can't beat a hang-on tree stand that's quiet. You just walk to your stand, climb up, and you're done. So I took that approach when I started hunting these new properties and realized I was almost wasting my time, because there was a lot of stands I hung with the mindset like it probably could have panned out if it worked in my favor pressure-wise, but it didn't. Like there were things that hindered me or discouraged me to go sit that. So I spent all this time in the summer putting this tree stand up, and it was a waste of my time. So going back to the stand I was talking about on this other piece of property, the whole property gets utilized to things are done that are outside of my control, right? But there's one section of this property I have noticed in hunting observation, in people watching, and cameras. It's the most daylight-oriented piece that gets left alone. It's a small section within this 20-acre property. So that's where I put a permanent hang-on, well, not permanent, but a hang-on tree stand that's worth my time and energy. Now, there's other places within that property that I might hunt, but those are the pieces, and it goes back to what you just asked with that public land question. Those are the sections where if I have a reason where, let's say I see something from a distance, or it's that time of year or whatever, I have a mobile setup, and I will dive into that section if I think it's worth it. But, it's also a section where once I'm in it, it's hard to get in and get out and not bump something. So the consistency of how often I would be able to sit that stand is drastically reduced. So in that case, I look at it as I only have so much time in the preseason. That's a spot I might hunt once a year. So then I'll hang and hunt it. But the other stand, I might hunt 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So it's worth it. So that's kind of how I approach that stand as far as pressure outside of the deer.
Yeah. That was actually going to be the next part of that question, Mitch, was going to be dealing with, like you said, that 20-acre piece. How do you, what did you learn from the pressure that gets put on the deer from those things? Just because sometimes I find it even difficult where when I go back home to hunt Northeast PA, and I've said it a couple times on the podcast, where there's not a lot of pressure. And at times that's even, I find it very difficult because it's just trying to figure out then at that point in time, once you're in on the deer, it's nice, obviously, number one, but it's getting in on those deer undetected and all that stuff. And where the entry route is, you're kind of pigeonholed with that. But there, back in the day growing up, guys would walk around during gun season per se, and that's when the pressure would be put on, and not a whole lot during bow season. But now, man, unless somebody's trespassing, there's zero pressure put on these deer. And I find that sometimes so hard, just because, in public, you could look at it of where guys are parking and maybe moving, and just, you get a sense basically, and you could kind of look at the map, or if you've scouted and kind of know where maybe deer will move to for a safe haven, that type of stuff. So on those smaller pieces like that, what have you learned as far as the pressure and the deer behavior once that happens?
Well, it depends on the pressure itself. I'll give you an example. Property that I shot my buck last year. That property, cameras told me we should have been hunting that property the beginning of the season. There was so much daylight activity that I should have thrown anything out the window about any preconceived notions about time of year or this and that. I should have just been hunting, because that's what the deer were telling me to do. So in that case in point, what I learned from that is try to beat the pressure if it's remotely possible. This year it doesn't seem like that's going to be as possible for that specific property. And the reason I say that, since I shot my buck there, it was timbered, which on paper that should make it better. But it also seems like with it getting timbered, it actually brought more attraction from other people that have permission on these properties. And I've seen more people on the properties, driving around on side-by-sides or walking around. I saw cameras that I never saw before. So I don't know if that theory is going to work, but in theory, what I had last year was hunt certain places early, pressure-wise. And that was kind of my goal going into the season. Hunt it based on time windows that I know of these properties. And then if none of that works on those 3 properties, then it was going to be, hey, go pound some ground on the public. That's kind of my original thought there.
Yeah. So when you look at the month of October, Mitch, how do you come up with especially the way, because I feel like you and I will be hunting very similar, almost like a week-to-week basis, right? Figuring out how it's going to map out. I mean, in years past, I'd tell the wife, I'm going here this weekend, and I have buddies that still do that, where I'm in limbo. I know I'm going to get to New York when? I don't know. I just know I'm going. You know what I mean? I do know, my wife's like, well, when are you going home? I know it's going to be towards the end of October. That's all I know. Do you know what I mean? That's at that point. So I don't really have fixed kind of dates when you look at for right now going into the season, since we're only a couple weeks away from October, are you going to have like a week to week goal, and what does that look like if you do? Like, are you going to say, like how you were saying early season, I'm going to try to beat the pressure, I'm going to get in there, and if that doesn't work, that's when things can transition to property B, and that's what that looks like?
Yeah, great question. So again, I'm back to the whole options thing. So another property is right here by my house. You talk about windows in October. I have noticed since I live here that somewhere between October 15th to the 17th, all the way up until just before Halloween, there is always it seems like a group of doe or a doe specifically or whatever that will come into heat early, and there's buck that cruise through here. In fact, the biggest deer I ever killed in my life, I killed on the 23rd of October, and he was cruising through. He came through at this very specific window, and since then, case in point, last year, I had like no intel. I put like no cameras out, but I just decided, looking at the time frame, looking at I had the right winds. I had a north wind to get into this stand. It was around the 20th of October, and had a north wind. It cooled off a little bit, all these things, and I'm like, you know what? I don't have this information, but the past tells me this is the window to try to hunt. And I think the second sit that I put, I saw a buck I would have shot. I didn't get him killed, but I went. So, I'm looking at that property for a window. I have, the property I shot my buck last year, kind of in an early window. It's kind of going to be a learning experience too, because with all the changes, I don't know how the deer are going to react. So it's kind of going to be I'm going to have to keep pace with it all through the season. The one thing I actually base my season around too, and this is kind of getting off of the time windows and, getting off of the deer vibe. I'm kind of a nut right now trying to chase bear. So whenever I make a decision now, if I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to take 4 days and I'm going to go hunt at camp, or I'm going to go over to this piece that I've scouted or whatever, I'm usually doing it when bear is open, because I'm just as hung up on trying to shoot a bear with my bow as I am a buck. So I am going back to calendars and dates just because there's a more narrow window when you can do that species.
Yeah, man. What's fascinating, like we've talked about it a little bit about the bear thing, and Jim has talked about it. Like that's a goal of his too, is to get one with the bow. Man, with talking to people for yourself that you've had on your podcast, and with you learning, and because you've killed did you kill your Jersey bear? Was it last year?
Yeah, I shot a bear in New Jersey last year. Yep.
Yeah, and that was a nice bear too. And it's like, it's okay to chase like that and grow and do those fun hunts. But man, you're probably learning just even so much more different things that could help you be a better hunter, even in the whitetail woods. Like just by the observation and being in there. And I don't know, I think I haven't done a good job of doing that. Like, it's like, oh, I buy that bear tag, and it's like, if one comes by, like, okay, cool. I don't know. I always wanted to get one, but I just feel like I'm on this whitetail. I need to learn and get better at a whitetail hunt, where it's like, man, I need to branch out a little bit and experience those things, and maybe other things can happen, and just get better at doing, just different things basically.
Well, here's one thing I have learned. Like, I used to think, I've hunted bear since I'm 12 years old. Most of my bear hunting has been go with a camp, a group of guys in rifle season, make drives. I shot 2 that way in Pennsylvania. I still don't think I'm a bear hunter, right?
Yeah.
But now I'm trying to learn how to shoot a bear, because I want to, read sign, all that stuff, and shoot one, get one close without somebody chasing it. And the thing that I learned was, A, I wasn't covering enough ground, and B, it's really not as hard as I made it out to be. It's a very simple process. Find food, find bear scat, find cover that has, there's a specific cover I like to look for bear. It usually involves moisture and cool. But I mean, if you can find food and find cover, you're going to find bears. And that's what I've noticed. So the thing I've taken is, I made that an over complex thing in my head for a long time until I started doing it. Now I'm revisiting this and thinking, how often do I overthink it and overcomplicate deer? I mean, and that's kind of where I flirt a line of my own podcast and content, because sometimes I think we overtalk this and overhype this up and over complicate something that it's not a real difficult concept if you get a couple basic principles down. And sometimes I think it involves a little luck. So that's why I just roll with it.
I think it involves a lot of luck, dude. That's where I'm at with it. And I'll tell you what, I had a conversation recently with a friend, and I talked about how this episode, obviously I'm asking you like how you're, I guess in my own mind, I'm asking it. It's not very tactical in my mind, because I'm not like, how are you scrape hunting? How are you doing this? I'm in my mind, I want a breakdown of how Mitch is attacking October. How is Mitch attacking those small parcels? Because honestly, like you said, man, for doing this for 4 years, don't get me wrong, there's some guys that I love to listen to, and there's other things that interest me or whatever, but it's hard for me to get jazzed up and being like, let's talk about scrapes. Like, and it's not saying that I know everything about scrapes, because I don't. I still might want to learn more about scrapes, and I could still pick up tidbits and whatever. And the scrapes hunting is one of my favorite things, just because you learn so much about it, because if you hang and get that intel, all that type of stuff. Long story short, I just I want to know more about the journey for some of these people and how they approach it. Yes, it might turn into that tactical type of information, but I'm trying to spin it, if that makes sense. And that's my goal, and that's where I'm hoping to go with that, because the other aspect of that, I consider you one of the a very knowledgeable individual about this information, and that is the food. Like whether you're doing food plots or whether you're just knowing what deer like to browse on and all that type of stuff. And that was an aspect for up until, I still suck at it. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm still learning
Me too.
What you know what I mean? But like, I'm still learning, especially, what plant is that? What tree is that? Like I have that plant app, whatever, on my phone, so I could take the picture, and I'm screenshotting that information. That way I don't lose it. And then I, obviously in the screenshot folders, I'm able to go back and all that type of stuff, because that's an aspect that I know I've struggled with. So I like listening to guys that have a good grasp on that type of stuff. So, October is a weird month, because, there's that October lull, right? And all that type of stuff. And I just think the food just changes, right? The time of year changes. So cover's changing, their mood's changing. They're wanting to chase girls. Like just so much change is happening. And like you said earlier, you want to be on the forefront of that. So it's like, how do you do that? And then, like you said, you get a little luck. You have to understand a little bit about the food. So when it comes to like the food side of things, that's a big deer behavior change. You know what I mean? I think so. So how does that impact your overall game plan for things?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this the other day. We're talking about sign a little bit. I'll be frank, like when I hunt private land that I've had a good history with, I don't really pay a lot of attention to scrapes and rubs.
Okay.
It doesn't mean a lot to me, because I guess I just have enough history with the place. I talk about food plots. I love food plots. If I can plant one and it does well and it's a consistent food source. The biggest thing I've learned, and people talk about states like Pennsylvania and these in pressured states that you can't see deer in open areas. I think that's relative to where you're hunting. You can have small pieces of private land with a food plot that a mature buck will come out in daylight hours. I've seen it time and time again. So I've leaned heavily on food plots. You don't have to have a food plot. This property in Western Pennsylvania, the one thing I noticed, if you look back at aerial imagery, it used to be like a working farm of some sort. It's all these rolling hills. Like it wasn't tillable land, but it was like grazed pasture stuff. Well, throughout its journey of becoming deciduous forest, there's a lot of apple trees there. Well, a lot of those apple trees are loaded this year. Yeah. Well, that's the first thing I'm looking at. It has oak trees in it. Well, if there's food, and that's the one thing that's nice about this property is it's broken up, right? It's not like, here I'm east of the Susquehanna, and a lot of these ridges and plateaus that we hunt, that's public land on this side. There's no segregation. It is a solid mountain of oak trees. So sometimes trying to find a pocket is a freaking nightmare. This property, I can take that same concept with food plots, and I could just say, okay, well, there's mass crops dropping here. I'm going to look at that. Over here, I already identified this as the area that has the lowest amount of pressure and also has good bedding structure. Hey, what's linking in between there? Hey, what can I access and get in and get out and not be seen, heard, or smelled? That's what I look for in October. I would say the caveat to the sign thing is like trying to think of a couple stands that I would have now. Like there's one or two stands that I try to make my access that I'm not going through a lot of deer sign in the first place. But there's a couple that I might cross a deer trail or something that get used. And if I see like the difference between like a perennial scrape and like an aggression scrape, you know what I mean? Like sometimes a buck just coming along and something gets his girk and he rips open something, breaks off, and it's a small scrape that wasn't there the previous years. That's usually something in my mind. If it's mid-October and I see that, I'm thinking, okay, maybe buck are starting to transition a little bit less off of. They're still going to food. I mean, I've seen and shot deer on food plots at the end of October, but are they going there for food or are they going there for girls?
Right.
So that's kind of like, I guess, one caveat where I'd say if I see that and it's mid-October, maybe I'm thinking about other stands that I could hunt that maybe are advantageous. It's not as close to food, and maybe it's in between transition or something.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I want to ask you, going back to how you're saying you're going to read the picture, right? You're going in there. I know you're little to no cell cameras basically and all that type of stuff like for this year. So when you say like you especially those private pieces where the rubs and the scrapes don't really get you fired up, what are you going on?
Well, I do have I have one cell camera out at this place in Western Pennsylvania. Here at home, I'm going off of time frame and a cold front, and I'm going to try to capitalize in October. I'll glass here. I mean, this is a place that I can actually see what deer are doing in the morning and the evening on some other fields.
Yeah.
In fact, the deer, I never confirmed this, but the deer I killed here a couple years ago, 2 nights before I killed him, I saw a buck chasing a doe in the field across the street, and that was my first indication that, like, hey, something's happening here. Yep. And I never did confirm if it was the same deer, right? But yeah, it's pretty much food, and like I have, like I said, a cell camera at that property. I'm hunting windows of time in those properties, and like I said, if none of that pans out in October, that's where I'm going to shift the gears and say, all right, forget these places. I haven't had any luck. Now I'll go to places I hunt public, look for sign, hunt sign, that kind of thing. Yeah. So I guess it's one thing where that's a tough question to answer how I would do it, because it's pretty much food cover and knowing where that is. And then if I can get in and get out, it's based on when do I have time to hunt. It's not a real sexy answer, but that's just all there is to it.
Dude, and here, you ready for where I was trying to see if you'd be able to get there, and you got there, but you didn't exactly say it. You're not going to overcomplicate it.
I'm trying not to. I mean, let's face it.
Right.
I wasn't planning on deer hunting in Pennsylvania that much until I got until my wife's field hockey was done. And then I was going to try to hit it hard. She just said something to me tonight about, hey, do you want to go out and hunt, in the Western PA property next weekend? Because it's in 2B, so it's early.
Yep.
I'm like, well, you don't have to threaten me with a good time. And I'm thinking, I wasn't even planning on that. And then I started to think about, how am I going to hunt this? I was like, I'm going to hunt it the way I had it planned. Right now I have 2 stand locations set up. One is on the food plot. One is this one I just described earlier. And if the wind is right, I'm going to hunt there. If the wind's not right, I probably won't even go. And that's how I'm going to treat it. If I can get in and get out, I'm going to hunt.
Yeah, I like that. So it doesn't matter, bear, whitetail. What's the one aspect that you're really focusing on this year that you would like to improve?
Good question. I heard somebody say the other day, if you really want to challenge yourself to learn, like get outside your comfort zone learning, don't sit the same tree twice, I heard. And that's not going to happen on some of the private pieces just because I feel pretty comfortable with that. But when I think about, the week of the 14th to the 19th, which would be the Jersey hunt, I'm going to be deer and bear hunting. I really took that to heart thinking, if I go in with my stand on my back or saddle or whatever I have, and I go in, read stuff, and say, let's try this. I have a hunch. Let's try it. And if it doesn't work, tear down and do something different.
Right.
In the past, I've hung sets and just said, well, this looked good. Let's try it for 2-3 days. So I guess the thing I would say is just making sure I don't stop. I'm definitely somebody, and this is where I think private land has hurt me. I'm very much like tiptoe my way in, be very cautious, and not want to chase stuff, not want to booger stuff up. And I've learned that sometimes if you just go in and learn it, bust it all up one time, but then then you can go from there. Right. And I guess trying to break that cycle, like tiptoeing my way in, and then by the end of the week, if I'm down there for a week, realize, oh, you should have been here. I should have figured that out day one and then hunted it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like that. Because for me personally this year, I just want to, like I said it on your podcast, like I want to just continue to be efficient and you know what I mean, and be smart with my time. Not try to get hung up on everything. Like as far as overcomplicating it of where to hunt, like you said, if the wind's great and I'm able to get in there clean, I'll hunt it. But if the wind's not good, I'll come up with something else. And I think that's critical, and I think that's learning too. I think that's adapting. You know what I'm saying? Like that's, like you said, it's just, I don't know. That's the piece where I think it's valuable information to know that it's okay to do that type of stuff.
I had a conversation with a friend of mine the other day. He's a diehard mountain buck person. He hunts northern Pennsylvania big woods and consistently kills deer. And I was talking things with him, and I as we're talking about this, I said, sometimes when I'm talking about this, I have this battle of, am I not specific enough in my attention to detail, or am I, or two? I said, I feel like I overthink this. And he just goes, you absolutely overthink this. He said, deer are creatures that are trying to feed their bellies, reproduce, and not get killed. He said, and enough about those that you can go in, try to be undetected, and shoot one. And sometimes it's going to happen. Sometimes you're going to fail. More times than not, you're going to fail. But if you keep being persistent with it, you're going to eventually cross paths with one. And I'm just I guess trying not to overcomplicate it, I guess would be the best way. Try not to do that.
Yeah. What are you looking forward to most this year?
I've been looking forward to New Jersey bear hunt. I mean, ever since I thought I would shoot one last year and that would kind of scratch the itch. And that just absolutely, man, that got under my skin to the point where I wanted to shoot a bigger one. I'm actually thinking about taking my flintlock muzzleloader to try to shoot one. So I'm just excited about that hunt. And then the other hunt I'm always really excited about and is our deer camp hunt. I have a camp in north central Pennsylvania, has an overlap of deer and bear season the first week of rifle.
Nice.
And for 1 or 2 days, I'll get family, friends. One day, my brother-in-law's camp comes down. We'll get a big crew together and we hunt together. And it's been a hunt where, after an archery season of beating myself up and trying to strategize and overcomplicate everything, it's the break I need where we say, hey, let's try to get in and set this block of woods up. Which way's the wind going? Who's coming with me? And let's make a push and see what happens. And you know what? It's a underrated way of hunting too. A lot of people like talk bad about it. I've learned a lot from doing those. The way deer move when they're pressured, the way bear move when they're pressured. So it's just breaking up the monotony too. So I enjoy those camaraderie hunts just as much, if not more, than trying to fill my buck tag.
Yeah, man, I give you credit. I think I just need to finally bite the bullet and do that, because I've been invited on like one or two of those where it's like, man, by the end of that, like you said, that archery season, I've exhausted my mind. I've exhausted my my being away from the family, all that type of stuff. And it's like, okay, this is the weekend where we could do something, or this is the weekend I'm home. Like, I don't have to worry about it. But there is that part of me where I want that experience, like you said, just to go out and have fun and maybe enjoy it that one last time for that camaraderie with friends and family and all that type of stuff. And that's what I miss that about like where I hunt back at home. I remember coming in for rifle season all the time, man. And there were times, like, don't get me wrong, like my dad was still, we would hunt dark to dark. But then like that other day that last 2 days or something that I would have to go ready to go back to school or whatever, and we would put together some drives or go check other pieces of the mountain out and all that type of stuff. And that doesn't happen anymore, man. And I'm this year, I'm feeding for like that. I want weight on my back at some point in time, whether I'm with a friend and he needs help to pack something out. Like, I just want that experience this year. That's like another little goal of mine. I want that to happen in some form or fashion, basically. But I think I just need to bear down and, pun intended, I guess, bear down and actually like go that weekend.
You're talking the weekend of the statewide bear season.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've done it since I'm 12, and it's to the point now I don't want to miss it. And
yeah,
it's fun. I actually like that. That's my least favorite bear season, is the rifle bear season. We hunt bear pretty late, and I still say the best time to kill a bear is when bear season's not open, is like September. Like when food is plentiful and they're moving around. This October season's a great time frame. That's another thing too I learned with bear hunting, that I'm kind of starting to try to transition with deer hunting. Like, so this year I started scouting way earlier in Jersey for bear, right? I was down in July. I started looking for cornfields on public or near public, and that was my starting point for a food source. And I realized very quickly, I think I started a little bit too early because I was excited, because already some of the cornfields that I had picked, they got chopped for corn silage. So they're gone. So that kind of changed that place dramatically. And the other thing too is, I have seen bear, I saw it last year, I have seen bear not be as active on a cornfield when the nuts start dropping, when acorns start dropping. Apparently, like I said, this was common knowledge. It wasn't to me. I had never seen bear eat hickory nuts, but apparently last year I finally did, and they were eating hickory nuts. So, like, what I took from that is most recent information. All it probably would have took was a day or two of scouting within a week of when the season opened, when I wanted to hunt, and I probably would have had enough to be deadly. And I keep going back to deer hunting and thinking, okay, let's just say these 3 properties that I have that I'm talking about hunting, you know, I can see the silver lining behind the clouds. I'm going to miss the opportunity at this place behind my house because something's going to keep me, you know, out of the woods. The place in Western Pennsylvania is 4 hours away, and I'm probably going to miss that opportunity just because it's 4 hours away. And the place I shot my buck at last year, maybe it's overpressured this year. So if all of that comes out and acts that way, maybe I did myself a favor going to some of these other places that I've been to before, but I haven't stepped foot in up until in season. And I was thinking about, like, you know, you watch a hunting public, you watch some of these places that they do these, you know, week-long excursions in places. They shoot deer and shoot good ones all the time. And they're doing boots in the ground scouting, looking for sign on a piece of public land that they've never been, trying to figure out where the deer are, putting a piece of the puzzle together and hunting. And I guess that's the biggest thing. Like I said earlier in this podcast, on the private land, rubs and scrapes don't mean that much to me. Well, on public, that's all you got. So,
Yeah.
like, one thing I guess I'd look forward to is trying to get better. I mean, I feel like I have a pretty good idea how to read that stuff, but I'd like to get better at it and utilize it and hunt it that way. So, just, I guess, get outside my comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when you were saying about the private, you don't care for the rubs and scrapes and stuff, I'm starting to transition my brain too a little bit with that, because I use that for back at home a lot for camera data. But like I've noticed the last couple times that I've hunted and have had success there, I'm around that, but I'm more around like the cover. And I'm more around like just the trails, and I might be able to maybe touch that scrape, but that's not my main reason why I'm in that spot. It's a high percentage. It might be a 60-40, but that 60 is mainly being, this is the area where this deer is going to pop out of. And then knowing that like there's that piece, that end piece that they're getting to, right? Like they're coming from point A and that point B is that scrape basically. Just because food's all over, the browse is all over, it seems like. But yeah, I like hearing how you say that. So let me get into a little bit of quick questions for you. You prefer morning or evening hunts? What's your favorite?
That's a tough question to answer. I've killed way more bucks in the evening,
okay,
but I still prefer hunting in the morning. Don't ask me why.
Yeah.
I guess I would answer that if I had confidence in when I was gonna kill one, it's the evening, and it's mostly because I'm hunting food or transition from bed to food in October, and that seems to be better in the evening for me. That's where I've killed more bucks. I've shot more buck in October that way than any other way.
You a mechanical or fixed guy?
Yes.
Or what's your go-to, man? Like, what's your go-to? If you could only hunt with one more broadhead for the rest of your life, what are you shooting?
It's a fixed blade. I shot VPAs last year.
Yep.
And loved them. They're great heads. They fly like darts. They fly fantastic. My biggest gripe, it's not necessarily with the broadhead. It's just I don't take time, and I'm not very good at sharpening.
Yep.
So that kind of puts a downgrade in that style of head, even though I love that head because it's structurally and sound, and I don't have to worry about anything. But this year, found myself at a weak point when I was shopping. At one point, I bought. I always wanted to try Magnus Buzz Cuts, so I bought a box of them. And this is going to probably ruffle some feathers. I had to try it because I've seen so much stuff. I bought a pack of Beast broadheads because I wanted to see what they do. So I've got mechanicals and fixed blades in my quiver.
What do you have those Beast broadheads?
I have a pack of 2. I decided I was going to shoot something with them.
How do they seem?
Well, they fly great. I mean, I didn't test them on anything. We're going to find out. I mean, they seem like they're good broadheads, but I mean, are they worth I think it was $60 for 2 of them, which I was like, good grief, why the heck did I do this?
Yeah.
But
I
wanted to try them.
Yeah, you want to test them out. Kurt and I talked about that too. Kurt bought them, and he was like, I could care less, whatever, where that stands. He's like, I just wanted to test the product. You know what I mean? Like he was in that same boat with that.
Well, and here's my thing with the product. You could say whatever you want about him. I get where people are coming from. He's a very controversial figure in the outdoor world. But here is one thing that I will say that you can't take away from him. Josh Bomar is a hardworking dude. For him to be able to shoot the shots that he shoots and be in the shape he's in bow hunting wise, he works hard. Now, whether you like his demeanor, decisions he makes, that's anybody. I get that, and I disagree with things he does too. But he's hardworking, and I think he does put a lot of thought into it. So, when he went behind what happened with this broadhead, and talking about the sharpness of it, that was all pretty attractive to me. So I was like, hey, I'll give credit where credit's due. I got to try this.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see what happens. And I told Kurt, I said, send me some photos. I want to see, because I'm a big gear guy. You know me. So if I have
Are you still shooting Severs?
I'm shooting Severs, and I'm shooting Grim Reapers. I'm also going to test out some of these too. I got here Let's see.
Slick tricks. Nice.
Yep. These are those torch.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's 100 grains. We got stainless steel blades. We got a aluminum ferrule, and then the tip is a chiseled titanium tip. So anxious to see how they go. We got 2-inch cut, dead bolt deployment, field point accuracy. So we'll see. I told Jim, I said, if I end up getting I have a pretty high bonus points at Lancaster right now, just saving up. And I saw those Beast broadheads are in stock right now, so I could pretty much, I won't have to pay for them just because of how much money I have as far as that. I'm tempted to do it. So just if I have a 5 arrow quiver, there might be 5 different broadheads in the quiver. It's just a matter of who's getting the first try will be, so.
The main reason I've been a fixed blade guy is just because I'm a shoulder hugger. So if I was going to do anything, I was going to hit bone before I hit guts. So that's why I hit fixed blades.
Yeah. See, I think I'm probably the opposite.
Okay.
The one time that I did have a fixed blade, I did hit bone and it didn't do shit for me. It was like
really?
it was 70 pounds. It was only like a 27-yard shot. And just, I thought I was like, let's go. And didn't even find the arrow, didn't find a speck of blood, nothing. I was like, and like when she turned, I saw the whole arrow basically was still sticking out. I was like, what the heck? I thought I would have buried her. So I don't know. So, all right. I like that one. When is so I asked you like morning or evening. Now let's build upon that. What's your favorite time of season to hunt? You going early, you going rut, you going late season? Like what's your favorite?
Probably the first week of the season.
Ooh. Okay.
I still think the best time to shoot a big mature buck, the best buck in the area, is the first week when they're not on something. Now, I'm not saying it's easy, but I mean I've been a part of some deer that were shot the opening week on food sources on private land, and I think you can transition that to the same thing because I talked about this with. Last year, I'll never forget it. I had Greg Litzinger on my podcast, and we were talking a little bit about public land and pressure and stuff. And I'll never forget, he said, yeah, but the first week, he said, we were talking about chop-offs in the big woods is what we were talking about, and pressure and this and that. He goes, yeah, but nobody hunts the first week. And when you talk about big woods and chop-offs, like I'm sure some get pounded, but there's a lot that are non-existent with hunting pressure. Yeah. And I think you could take that exact same concept, the opening week, if you did your homework, know what a deer's doing. I still think the opening week you can kill a big buck.
A big buck, yeah. That's intriguing. I like that. I got 2 more. Do you do scent control? And then 2, what's your scent control tip?
I've been down that rabbit hole a long time. I'm getting lazier and lazier with scent control the more I go into this. I used to do a lot. Now, I was actually thinking about this the other day. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do.
Do you wash your clothes every year?
Every year I have washed my clothes. Okay. I have done it where I wash them consistently. Like I used to have a regiment where I'd have multiple base layers. I'd wash them, put them in a scent-free container, and I'd wear them once to the, I'd change in the field and do all that and scent-free soaps and this and that. And I still got winded, so I got to a point where why am I doing this if I'm still getting winded? So each year I've gotten lazier and lazier and lazier. I guess the only thing I do, don't know if there's merit to this, I usually, if it's a private land that I'll hunt on a regular basis, I'll at least try to have a clean outer layer and rubber boots. I don't like to wear leather boots just because I do think you're going to probably emit more human odor when you walk to and from, when you're brushing up against leaves and sticks and stuff. Like I do think I've seen deer on my scent trail not be spooked when I'm wearing rubber boots, clean outer garments, that stuff. Is there merit to it? I don't know. I just, that's one thing in my gut. I feel like on a place you're going to have some consistency of hunting. Being clean for your trails where you're walking, I think helps. I can't prove that. But other than that, on wind, you know what my best scent control tip is if you're hunting private land, is hunt in a box blind and close the windows. That's my best scent control tip. I have seen deer do stupid things. And I know that ruffles feathers because that's not hunting and that's this and that. But you can say whatever you want. You get to see some really cool things when deer can't smell you on a food source.
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. Mitch, I appreciate you, man. I enjoyed this conversation, and I'm excited to see what you get into just because, again, it'll be a cool thing after our seasons are over when we could reconvene and talk about it because, like I said, I feel like we're in that same very similar approach to the year this year for the hunting season, kind of just throwing a dart at the board and see wherever it lands, we're going to make the most of it. And get after it the best we can and enjoy it and have fun with it. So, Mitch, man, dude, where can people listen to you and follow along with what you got going on, man?
For the most part, I think it's probably the same things you're going to be doing with the Antler Up podcast. I'm on Sportsman's Empire Sportsman's Empire Podcast Network. Anywhere you find your podcasts, I'm there, Pennsylvania Woodsman, and I'm trying to be better at doing a little bit more activity on social media, and I'm only on Instagram, and whatever I post to Instagram usually goes right to Facebook, but it's all stuff at Pennsylvania Woodsman Podcast, so that's where you'll find me. But thank you for having me. And hey, if you decide you get something up your crawl, you want to go bear hunting, you have an open invitation. I'll take you with.
Man. Dude, I appreciate that. I honestly, I might take you up on that. I probably have, like I said, I have that itch this year really bad. And I was going to say this too. And now that you got through how the wanting to do more for the social media side of things and doing and the program that we're using, it's a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. I was going to do it in good fun because I know you would laugh because you would enjoy it, but I didn't want a listener right off the rip be like, "Wow, Jeremy's an asshole." I was going to say just because you took I applaud you. I wish I could do it. I've taken that break of social media there for a while, but it takes to get the message out there. You just need to post a little bit here and there and all that stuff. But I was gonna be like the social media guru. Mitch is on here now. He's got the reels going for the podcast. No, man, it's good, all good stuff. And check him out. Like, I hope you could hear in his tone of voice and just hear how smooth talking Mitch is, but he knows his stuff. And I mean that heartedly, dude. So go check him out. Tune in every Wednesday, and it's same day that the Antler Up podcast drops. So, make sure you honestly just instead of like just doing the Antler Up one and then the PA Woodsman one, like just do that Sportsman's Empire and let it rip. And there's a lot of good guys on there.
Absolutely.
And not only hosts, but they're getting good guests on there as well. So check that out. And thanks for tuning in. Good luck. It's that time of year. The cold air. My sister's sending me all kind of cool, funny reels right now with Napoleon Dynamite dancing when that cold, snap finally hits. It's funny to get things from her about it. So it's here. So check it out, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Antler Up.